So we've been working on that. I think it was post-Sandy NIFWA grant. The Nature Conservancy in South Jersey did 3 types of sort of wetland restorations using failed material like that. And we are continuing to talk about those things and starting again next week. Another thing too. We want to use them, find ways to find sites or projects where we can advance that conversation, learn something from it, and pilot something new. And so we're trying to figure out what. So I mentioned that because not that I want to get a doctor on my door, but we are looking for one up in this part of the state. Nature Conservancy, traditionally we've been elsewhere in New Jersey focused, and in the office I'm based out of. I work at home locally, but I'm based out of our Delaware Bay office, which used to do Delaware Bay projects. And now we have a statewide focus. And we would like to get something up in the urban area because we think there's something to be learned up there. You know, there's some things going on in Barnegat Bay and further south, but up here there's, I think there's other things we can learn up here. Yeah.
About 4 years ago, we tried to convince the town of Red Bank not to put a solid bulkhead up behind the line. I'm not sure you know what it is. But at that stage, it was talking to an absolute wall and trying to talk about living shorelines, and we don't need it. And since that time, I've heard a lot about living shorelines, and I see more in the news. But my question to you is, do you get the sense that the regular construction people starting to get some religion with regard to living shorelines, or are they still basically listening to the limit?
As far as the construction folks and the engineering community, I think the engineering community is at least hearing that this is an option. I think most of them need to say, is there a bucket can they do it? Can they make a living doing these things? So, I think on the construction end of it, I think there's a ways to go in locally, because your construction folks are generally going to be local. It's sort of like in the Chesapeake Bay. In Maryland, it's the law to do a living shoreline. You have to prove you can't do it. So they have trainings, and they've been doing it for a much longer period of time. But up here, I think we have a ways to go. But that's one thing I think, I'll just say the living shoreline community, proponents, Liberal Society, and others, we wanted to get the marine contractors to understand these things and know how to put them in, find where the materials are. And it's one thing to put in a sheet pile bulkhead. People know how to do that. You don't have to do a design for it practically. You just go out and do it. These take more design. Where are you going to find the materials? If you need rock, where are you going to find the rock? How are you going to get it to your site? All those kinds of things.
And sometimes in your second effort too, it doesn't all, the solid bulkhead succeeds if you do it right.
Right.
The standards.
Yeah.
The shoreline, sometimes you have to adjust and come back after a year or 2 years.
And we, part of what we're trying to understand is where is the critical sort of stages, like who are the critical players? Is it engineering firms? Are engineering firms not recommending things because they don't understand them, or no one's asking them to do it? Are they just doing what the landowner wants, or the landowner is just depending on the engineer to make a recommendation? Or is it somewhere else in the process? Is when they go forward for a permit application, do the regulators turn around and say, did you consider the alternatives to a bulkhead? I really think New Jersey should require an alternatives analysis for these kinds of things, so at least you can demonstrate why you're going one or the other. So that could be a way that.
But that exists in Maryland? Is that what you said? Maryland?
In Maryland, yeah, there's a requirement, a law that you have to justify if you're doing a shoreline erosion control project. It's a living shoreline otherwise.
What does it take to get that over here?
It's a lot of work, a lot of education. As Bill said, Chesapeake's been at it a long time. I think the key to this is that you can get a permit from DEP for a bulkhead in 3 days or really quick.
Especially restoration.
Living shorelines, as Cindy sort of touched on, we go through a full-blown NEPA analysis. We go through ESA compliance measures with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the National Fisheries Service, when we put material below the tide line. So it just stretches it out, and the homeowners, it's very hard to ask a homeowner to wait when they have an erosion problem in their backyard. So that's really a big piece of it, despite the fact, and I will give a shout out to the state that they are absolutely trying to be collaborative in this, but they're always seeing the pitfalls, right? And the pitfalls are you don't want to provide an easy pathway to somebody to fill tidal waters, and we don't want that either. So we understand the safeguards, but once you get the quickness, because that's where the economics trends, right? That's why it's easier and often cheaper to put in a bulkhead, and everybody else does it, and we have historical shorelines that have lots and lots of bulkheads on them. You don't want to be the gap in that. So there's lots of different things that have to change before we really make this.
The Red Bank Library was a beautiful case, which was an educational institution, so why put up a...
Yeah, well, as you know, when you do that, there was a lot going on in that.
Yeah, it's terrible opportunity lost. There was this Monty Python movie in response.
The Red Bank Library is a great example of where a bulkhead isn't needed and what's there now is overkill.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like something you put along the highway or something.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I was shocked how
The final argument that we got is, yeah, well, there's a bulkhead adjacent to us, and that will collapse if we don't put a bulkhead on it. So you don't mind. I mean, this, I engineered it in 15 minutes. It will cost you much less than what you're doing right now. No, we're not going to do that. What was the end of that?
All right. Well, thank you so much, Bill. That's great. So next up we have Dr. Simona Christian, who is Clean Ocean Action's staff scientist. If you were here at our last rally meeting in November, you got to meet Remy and Kai, who were the pollution sniffing dogs, as we love to call them, who were out here doing their work. So Swarna is going to be presenting some of the highlights and the next steps that we've kind of identified based on that source track down investigation. It should just be the other. Oh, go down.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. And we know we're here, rally for the Navesink, the goals, grassroots, and fine fix, and there's no blame game. So we are here for our first public meeting for this year. And for those of you who are not familiar, this started with the most recent downgrade for shellfish in 2016, 560 acres, and Rally for the Navesink was initiated with two goals. One is to restore the condemned area in record time, so that's going to be 2020, and then break the cycle of pollution with sustainable, solutions, so we don't get to see this repeat. And there is, 4 essential parallel tracks. There is going to be the find it, the fix it, education part of it, coordination, and sustainability running through it all. And we thank all our partners who have been instrumental in doing different activities that helps revive the river and restore. So here we are to talk about the canine source track down that we did in November of 2018. To give a brief overview of the past, canine source track down was done here in 2016 in the Navesink watershed after a preliminary remote ship and sniff investigation. And with DEP's support and their data, we were able to hone in on hotspots, and the dogs helped identify and refine additional hotspots, and then the ambient citizen monitoring program was born. And as we speak, we are in year 2, 33 weeks to be complete. Yes, so we are marching ahead, and a lot of progress and a lot of efforts happening along the way. And for this source track down, Environmental Canine Services, we're back, and DEP has always been with us. And we did this in 4 towns: Fairhaven, Middletown, Red Bank, and Rumson. Rumson is a new addition to the ambient program for the 2nd year. There are a couple locations there. And for many of us, it's not entirely clear what this, canine source track down is all about. So I thought, this is a better way of kind of giving a general idea of what is, canine source track down all about. So Environmental Canine Services has been a company that is specialized in training dogs to specifically detect human fecal contamination. So basically what it detects is human sewage in waterways. So they use trained canines to detect and source track sewage pollution in storm water systems and surface waters. And it's certainly a cost-effective, rapid, at the same time it's a screening tool for source tracking for bacterial pollution from potential sewage discharges. And ECS has been actually nationally recognized in the past 10 years. They have actually done more than about 80 illicit discharge detection and source tracking projects in 16 different states. They have actually been incredibly busy, and that was also one of the reasons we found it kind of, hard to bring them and schedule them, and there were a lot of factors at play here. And we have been collaborating with them since 2016, as some of you know. So what can the dogs do? The dogs can detect if sewage is present. So it can be from collected water samples, and it can be from field locations. So it could be stormwater outfall, it could be manholes, catch basins, drains. It could be surface water, so it can be fresh inland waters. Can detect illicit connections as well, so it can be sewer discharge, septic discharges. And so how do they detect? The dogs are specifically trained to give out alerts. So these alert signals, rigorously they are trained for months, and now they are also certified to serve as ECS dogs. So some of their alerts could be like sitting, some of them could be barking, some of them is jumping. So they use different ones, but this particular one, the dogs that came actually had the sitting and the barking, alert mechanism. And the dogs can detect or determine the presence or absence of sewage only. That's something that we need to remember. It does not quantify how many fecal bacteria are present. So basically that is something that comes up only from analytical investigations that are available, and which the DEP has been doing as part of the bacterial monitoring for our MBA program as well. So some third additional points that we need to know is they do not alert to the presence of animal waste. So what it means is if for some reason, for a particular source, if it has both sources, animals and human sources, it cannot be precluded. So it does not mean that, there's only human, it cannot be. So, but what it means is it doesn't detect for the presence of animal waste. And sometimes the dogs do detect and give out alerts in dry manholes and catch basins where there may not be standing water or any, visible, water. So it could perhaps be due to, residual scent that could be remaining from any previous discharge that may have occurred. And sometimes the scent is carried by air currents through the connected pipes, through the conveying system. It could be carried. And some canines will alert to the presence of detergents or fats, oils, and grease. Most likely they actually come from improper, discharges. And even when human waste is not present, this may be, kind of like a mixed signal that you may get sometimes. So that is why you need to, it's better to actually verify that type of a response with surfactant testing or often brighter testing or fecal indicator bacteria as well to kind of differentiate and verify that. So ECS and DEP and COA, we all understand that canine scent tracking is a screening tool. So it helps for a faster identification and location of potential sources. And ideally, you need to verify them with analytical testing wherever possible, because that's how you can actually get to the fixes faster. The finding is faster with the screening ability of the dogs, and the fixes can be faster with the actual numbers. And when you talk of visit from humans or source apportionment, like to call it. Track down info. What really happened? The dogs visited the dogs were actually here in our last meeting too. They were our esteemed visitors. And they were here between November 28 and 30, right after that weekend rain during Thanksgiving, and one of the coldest and blustery days that some of us were actually fortunate enough to be in Oceanic, location and enjoy it. So how we designed this tracking study investigation was DEP and us, we looked at the results and we looked at what could be identified, what is potential areas of concern where we may like to see some more information or like to verify what we've been observing from a monitoring program. So we zoned in on 4 towns of Romson, Fairhaven, Middletown, and Red Bank. I'm going to get into the locations in the maps. And 2 dogs were here. One is a repeat visitor. Rennie was like the intern last year when she was here. So Rennie and Kai, they were the 2 dogs that were here. And the track down primarily happened during dry weather conditions. That's something for to be noted. It of course rained during the weekend. I think it was about 1 inch and more built, right? So it was kind of, it rained. But during the investigation of 24 hours prior, we did not have any rain. So I just interspersed some visuals. So to just see DEP was there. Every town we actually had the DPW folks with us, and they helped provide us with the infrastructure maps. DEP was on hand throughout the investigations to collect the water samples from locations where the dogs alerted to potential presence, and they were analyzed in the Lithuanian laboratory. And Scott will be talking about that. So the areas that we investigated in Romson, it was kind of into 3 different sections. One was from the Oceanic outfall, that is one of our sampling locations. We went to Bingham Avenue, and then the other location was from River Road, First Street, and I'm going to show you the map, and then 2nd Street and Church. So that those were the locations that we focused. And these pictures show you some of the others, like sitting and enjoying a treat right there, right after I believe a positive alert, and then looking at the oceanic outfall and DEP actually really peeking to see if there is some means to get some sample there. So we started off from the Oceanic and went all the way here. And we also went around here, and sample was collected by the DEP in this location, and which came to be, for a domestic signature. But at the same time, the dogs did alert here, but it must be remembered that one of the earlier investigations, prior to this site becoming a sampling location, there was an occurrence of, some possible high levels of bacteria, so we do not yet know why we got that signature over there. And then we went to High Tide here, so this is another location for our sampling, but we could not collect any, the dogs could not get to the high water level. They did try, but they could not get past. And then so we moved further upstream, so all the way from River Road here, looking at, there was a manhole, there were a couple of catch basins here, they looked around it, then moved all the way First Street, and this is the intersection, Church Street, and you can see that they did, in one particular location, at the intersection of Church and First, DEP did confirm that one location had a human signature, the other one had domestic and human signature. The maps are more zoomed in the next slides. And then, I'm not able to see this, where is it? Okay, no. You're just going to point a finger now. So, all the way down, if you see, that's the top of the line. So we went there to Somerset Drive and Oak Lane, and there the numbers that the DEP actually showed were, the highest among all locations that were tested, that did come up positive for both human and domestic and wildlife as well. And further, what we did was we moved to 2nd Street and Church, and you can see 3 other locations where they had positive hits that were confirmed by the DEP. So this is a much better version of that. So the yellow line just shows, how the dog is went around tracking every possible, manhole. I just want to point out one thing here. 30, if you see here, 30 MH, that's actually a manhole that was used, that is a sewer line manhole, so that was used as like a positive control. So when the dogs are out in the field, you also try to maintain the quality of the investigation. So there's like, you do the blank in a location that's free from all of these potential scents. So that is done with just, water, and the dogs are trained really well, so they just do not care about it and just go past that. So that is more like a negative control or black that we call. And then when it comes to the food that they really love, so they just go bonkers over that and just react so violently, and they're so excited to just go peek and forget, why they were here in the first place. And so that is from Simply, and DEP will tell the actual numbers and everything. And now we are getting to Fairhaven. Now, what happened in Fairhaven was there was some interest in this Fairhaven Natural Fields area during the 2016 dog investigation. Like, they were kind of alerting, but nothing came about it. And then we spoke to Fairhaven, and they were interested to find out what was the reason for those, mixed responses and why the dogs were alerting. And they did some investigations, and they were, cleared. So when the dogs were here, we reached out to them, and if we needed to investigate, go back to those locations and take a look. So it was a very, very brief investigation. We just went to Fairhaven, the Natural Fields area, and 4th Street in McCarter, so all the way in the back, where that is again one of the sampling locations. And the dogs kind of, alerted to something seems to be going on there, in the sense that there were they were picking up some scent, but actually nothing came about it. So we are really not sure why is it something from the past, is it, what's going on there? But there's no triggers or nothing, and the numbers are very low, so we have, let the town know about it, and so that is a good to go location as well. Middletown. Middletown was on day 2, and the specific